This poem is called The Tables Turned by William Wordsworth. Up, up, my friend, and quit your books, or surely you'll grow double. Up, my friend, and clear your looks. Why all this toil and trouble? The sun above the mountain's head, a freshening lustered mellow, through all the long green fields has spread his first sweet evening yellow. Books! 'Tis a dull and endless strife. Come, hear the woodland linnet. How sweet his music on my life, there's more of wisdom in it. And hark! How blithe the throstle sings, he too is no mean preacher. Come forth into the light of things, let nature be your teacher. She has a world of ready wealth, our minds and hearts to bless. Spontaneous wisdom breathed by health, truth breathed by cheerfulness. One impulse from a vernal wood may teach you more of man, of moral evil, and of good than all the sages can. Sweet is the lore which nature brings. Our meddling intellect misshapes the beauteous forms of things we murder to dissect. Enough of the science and of art. Close up those barren leaves. Come forth and bring with you a heart that watches and receives. Okay, before I get into the analysis of this poem, I will define a few words that some of you might not understand. The first word is in the first stanza, the last line, toil. And toil means hard and continuous work. And in the second stanza, in the second line, luster means the state of a shining by reflecting light. And mellow means soft, sweet, and full flavored from ripeness. In the third stanza, in the first line, strife. Strife means rigorous or bitter conflict. And linnet is a type of bird. And in the fourth stanza, blithe, that means cheerful. And finally, throstle is another type of bird. So let me get into the analysis of the poem, first starting off with structure. This poem is in stanza form. There are 8 stanzas. Each stanza has 4 lines. And the rhyme pattern is A, B, A, B. So that means, like in the first stanza, for example, books is A, and then double is B. And books rhymes with looks, which is the third stanza, so that's A. And double rhymes with trouble, which is B, so A, B, A, B. And for attitude, the narrator's tone was very passionate, serious, upset, and loving. And some literary devices in this poem is rhyme, of course, and personification, for example, highlighted in green in the first line of the second stanza. Mountain's head is an example of personification. And there are a few metaphors in here. One, for example, is in that same stanza, highlighted in gray in the last line, sweet evening yellow. That is an example of a metaphor. And last, repetition, which occurred in the first stanza, highlighted in blue, up, my friend, and up, my friend in the third line. The theme of this poem was mainly nature, because the narrator explains to the listener how nature is very beautiful and is much better than reading books. Speaking of that, the narrator thinks books are useless. For example, in the first line of the third stanza, he says, books, 'tis a dull and endless strife. And he also says in the first line of the whole poem, he says, up, my friend, and quit your books. And so he thinks books are dumb and useless. And the narrator tells the listener throughout most of the poem that nature is very beautiful and is a very important thing. And there are many examples of it. And a few examples are uh, right here in the second stanza, second line, a freshening luster mellow. That is, he is explaining the beautiful mellow of nature. And the main example was here in the seventh stanza, first line, sweet is the lore which nature brings. And he also says here in the last stanza, he says, close up those barren leaves, come forth and bring you a heart that watches and receives, which he is explaining that nature is more important than books, because in the first line he says enough of the science and of art, so saying that school and books of science and art are useless and we shouldn't read them, and that they are bad for your health, and nature is the most important thing for your health. Thank you for listening. Niles McCoy out.